Hello guys, how are you? I hope you are doing fine wherever you are. I am the ACCA tutor, Mr. Jeremy Temkulu, and in this video we are going to do some revision for the week 1 work uh, related to the ACCA performance management paper. All right, and the areas which were being assigned to us to cover related to activity-based costing. Yes, activity-based costing, ABC, as well as target costing. Right? These were the major areas which you were supposed to, respond to. Okay, the questions were linked to this. We also touched a bit of service costing. Right? And some model, the cost plus and so forth. Those were just nuances which were being encountered here and there. All right. So, but our main focus was on ABC as well as target cost. So we are having a question related to Teurai PLC, the Delmark D, the CADA C, and the parcel P. Currently, they use a traditional costing system, although an ABC system is contemplated. Product line details for a typical period are as follows. So we are having that table in the examination. Please expect to meet such, lots of information. So if you are not prepared, you are going to fail a simple examination just because you fear figures. Do not be intimidated by figures. You must make them your favorite, your friend, your pal. Okay. So the first column of the table talks of the products. All right, because we are told that this company is producing 3 products. So these are the products. The product, that's the product column. Then we have the hours per unit information. Okay, which means as you can see, this heading is representing 2 columns. The first column is for labor and for machine hours, so that information is all in hours. Okay, hours per unit. Are we together? That's the information of hours per unit, right? So for example, if you are in the role of product D, okay, it means product D requires 0.5 labor hours, all right, per unit, obviously, because we are told that these are hours per unit of the product. So to produce 1 unit of D, you need 0.5 hours, like 30 minutes. Okay, and then to produce the same product, you also need machine hours of 1.5 per unit. 1.5 hours per unit, that is 1 hour 30 minutes. Okay, so which means the product requires both the labor and machine work or machine hours to be produced, but we also need materials at a cost of $20. So the material information has been given in terms of cost per unit. So the actual dollars you are going to part away with. Then we have got the information of production in units required. So we are supposed to produce 750 items or units of product D. So you can see that it's very simple to interpret the table, isn't it? Good. So, or you just do the same thing for product C. We can see that they require 1.5 labor hours per unit and then 1 hour of machine time per unit. And then the cost per unit of product C in terms of materials is 15, and we are supposed to produce 1,250 items of product C, and we come to product P, we need one labor hours, one labor hour, and then machine hours, the 3, and then the cost per unit of materials is $10 for product P. Then we need to produce 7,000 items. Okay, this was just a typo, but it simply means product. Okay, the typist was was thinking of going for lunch, something like that, so they were just rushing. Anyway, we correct that. Now, the cost for direct labor is $6 per hour. Like I said, the labor and machine hours in the table, the machine and labor information in the table was in time or in hours. Okay, so we then have to then ask ourselves, how much in dollars were those things costing? Remember, they are part of the items or the inputs that are required to convert the raw materials into finished goods. So you must come up with the brain at this level. You must be able to understand what is called a cost cut, a product cost cut. This was done in your early studies, where we say to cost a product, we normally require, first of all, direct materials. We ask ourselves, how many direct materials do we need to produce a unit of this product? Okay, then we need the direct labor. Okay, that information, the direct labor cost per unit, the direct material cost per unit, and then we ask ourselves the overhead cost per unit. So we then come up with a total. That's actually in the traditional costing way. We are told that they are currently using the traditional costing. So before you even look at the question, you must be having this type of mathematics taking place in your head. Why? Because you'll be having the background principles. All right, so let's finish reading the question. The scenario. So the cost for direct labor is $6 per hour. All right, and then production overheads are absorbed on a machine hour basis, and the overhead absorption rate is $28 per machine hour. Those figures are very, very important. All right, so production overheads are in total 654,500, and further analysis shows that the total production overheads can be divided as follows. So these overheads can be divided in terms of those which relate to machinery, and they constitute 20% of this amount of the total production overhead. And then the machine handling costs constitute 15% of that figure. Okay, further, we have got this information. The following total activity volumes are associated with each product line for the period as a whole. Okay, so all the information here, all right, for the products is given, all right, where we get issues to do with material movements, okay, or movement of materials. For example, if we are looking at product D, we are seeing that this product requires 12 movements, or will take 12 movements. Product C will take 21 movements of materials. Okay, so we can see that the cost driver of material or of handling materials is actually in the movement. Okay, material, the number of material movements. All right, and if we add these and this one, we are going to get a total of 120 movements. Are we together, ladies and gentlemen? Good. Yeah, you should have actually seen that 120 there is the total of the other three figures. All right. You see, do not expect these assignments to be 100% error free. No, because they are, usually done by people who are not trained to be typists. All right, so you need to be very innovative when you are computing the answers to the questions. And where you find that you're not understanding the question, you then have to approach the tutor to get the necessary advice. Okay, going ahead. So we now have the general background of the question. We can, of the scenario. We can then move on to the question requirements. Okay, in the examination, you can as well start from the question requirements to at least attack the scenario with the general idea of what is being required of you. Okay, so now calculate the cost per unit for product D using traditional methods, absorbing overheads on the basis of machine hours. So we are being told that we need to come up with the cost per unit for product D. If you do not know the principle of cost cut, you are going to just jump straight into shortcuts and then end up doing the wrong things. For example, I saw some students just taking this figure, this total figure, and say the cost per unit for product D, they were just saying is equal to the total production cost of 654,500 divided by the number of units of product D, which were 750. And their answer was such a horrible solution. Okay, they obtained how much there? 654,500 divided by 750. So they obtained 872.67. Okay, thanks. Venus. Okay, that's fine. Okay, that's fine. D. All right, thank you. All right. So that's what they obtained when they were answering the question and moving on. But shockingly, they couldn't find that. There were no options for us to then check ourselves. That was very unfortunate, and they thought they did the right thing when they actually were in the wrong. This is wrong. Okay, that's wrong, guys. All right. So, we need to be very, very systematic. We need to understand the cost cut principle. So let us use the cost cut principle. Like I said, we need first of all the direct material cost per unit, and this one was given by the examiner. Product D requires $20 per unit, so we put our 20 there. All right. Then we ask ourselves, product D in terms of labor hours, right? How many hours do you need? And this will tell you that no, I need okay, I'm sorry, my video production system, it gives me some few minutes, all those things, and then it cuts off. I'm sorry for that. All right. So I was saying, you need to ask yourself, direct materials. how many are you, how much are you per unit is given, because this time they didn't give us information about kgs and so forth. Just they simply told us that the cost per unit is $20 in terms of material. Then when it comes to labor hours, they say that uh, we are charging $6 per hour. Okay, $6 per hour multiplied by the number of hours, which is 0.5 hours, as you can see there, and we get $3 there. All right, then you then ask yourself, what about machine hours? We have been told that machine hours cannot be a, I mean, directly given a line in terms of computation on the cost card. Why? Because we are absorbing the overheads on the basis of machine hours. So in that regard, the overhead absorption rate is going to be utilized in place of the machine hour cost or the machine time cost. Okay, so we are going to to use the overhead absorption rate in computing the production overheads. So production overheads, is they are, since they are based on the machine hours, we're going to say what was the overhead absorption rate. The overhead absorption rate was $20 per hour. So how many machine hours does product D require? And we are told that it requires 1.5 hours. So $28 multiplied by 1.5 hours, we get a 42. So we then compute the total. So in this case, we get 3 plus 2, that's 5, and 2 plus 4, that's 65. And when you get that, you slot your answer. Sorry, I thought it was a PowerPoint form. I'm sorry for that. And what's going on with my... Okay, sorry. Sometimes the screen sticks. So we get here the answer is $65. So you can see that it will be a shocker to the examiners if you obtain 872. It will be actually a shocker, because even if you multiply this 872 by the number of units produced, above the budgeted overhead costs, and that will be a weird figure, a far weird figure. So please do not do this. Just follow the principle. Okay, so we obtained our 65. Then we move on to the next computation. Okay, the next computation is talking of the total amount of machining overhead that would be allocated to product C for the period. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, please allow me, since we've done the first part, allow me to rub off, because I do not have enough area to utilize in doing these computations. So let me rub off this dirty. Okay, we can leave out the 65 for now and utilize the available spaces. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I do not want to lie. For the requirement number 2, we need to be very alert, because the computations required there are actually testing our arithmetic rigor in terms of ABC computations. All right, so we are required to come up with the total amount of machining overhead that would be allocated specifically to product C. Okay, so we can see that machining overhead is more like a cost pool, right? But we have determined that the cost driver for machining overhead is actually machine hours. Machining hours is the driver. Okay, this is actually the cost driver. So now, since this company is not producing one product but three products, we then have to determine the total hours which have been utilized in this particular period for all the products before we narrow down the to product C in terms of the cost. So what was the total hours utilized? Okay, so we come up with our table. We've got product D, product C, and product. The other product is product what? Let me check. Product P. Okay, so we've got product P as well. And we are told that these guys, they require different hours, and the information on machining hours is given there. So we can use that information. So 1.5, 1, and 3. Okay, 1.5, 1, and 3. Okay, those are the hours information in terms of hours per unit. And in terms of production, we want to produce 750 units. We also want to produce 1,250. We want to produce 7,000. Let me cross check. I think my memory is still sharp, even if I'm now an old man. Yes, that's the information we have. I'm sorry. Okay, so let us use our calculators, ladies and gentlemen. 1.5 multiplied by 750, we are going to get, excuse me, 1,125. And then 1 multiplied by 2, 125, that one is 1,250. And 3 multiplied by 7,000, we are going to get, that's 21,000. So the total hours in the period, the total production, total machine hours for production were, let me use this calculator again, 1,125 plus 1,250 plus 21,000. We're going to get 23,375. 23,375. Now we have got that information. We can call this one working number 1. All right, but we can then proceed and say what we now have. Let me just say the total number of hours which have been used by the cost driver. Okay, or let me just say that's the level of the cost driver. Okay, the level of activity of this cost driver, whatever you can say. All right, but we are then told, we are also told that in terms of allocation, all right, let me try to clean up this messy. Clean up the mess here. All right, there's more information about the total cost, overhead cost. We are told that in terms of machining, of this 654,500, only 20% relate to machinery. Okay, so we will come here and say total machine overhead, or just say machine overhead. All right, machine overhead, or let me machining, whatever. All right, we know that this overhead. I don't know what my pen is doing. Sometimes it is sticking. All right. We then say, all right, the total overhead is 654,500, but only 20% relates to machinery. Okay, so this means that what we need for machinery, 654,000 500 multiplied by 20%, we are going to get 130,900. So this is the machinery overhead. Okay, but we want the overhead cost per cost driver. Okay, so per cost driver, and our cost driver is machine hours. So the overhead per cost driver is now going to be 130,900 divided by the cost driver. The cost driver is the level of the activity of the cost driver, and we have determined it to be 23,375 hours. 23,375 hours, and these are dollars. So how much do you get? 130,900 divided by 23,375 hours, and we are going to get something like $5.60. $5.60, ladies and gentlemen. Don't mind my handwriting, it's very poor. Okay, so we are now having the cost per unit. So we need to then move on and say, since we now know that each machine hour, okay, in terms of ABC now, each machine hour is now costing $5.60. Remember, the traditional costing method was telling us that each machine hour was how much? Was $28. Remember, when in our computation, or even in the question, we were told that the overheads were being absorbed at $28 per hour of machine hours. So this time around, we are now determining, using the cost driver technique, that it's actually $5.60 per hour. So how many hours were utilized by product C? So that information now, product C, as we have computed here, product C utilized 1250. Why? Because it required 1 hour and the units produced were 1250, and it gave us this total 1250 hours. Okay, so 1250 hours multiplied by the new cost, machine hour cost, okay, or the new cost per machine hour, which is $5.60. Okay, the 560, remember, this is the 560 I'm talking about. This is the 560. Okay, so in that regard, we're going to get how much? 1250 multiplied by 560 per hour, and we get $7,000. Ladies and gentlemen, you're not going to get these answers by guessing. It's very, very impossible. Very, very impossible. There will be scant chances of passing this paper if you are somebody who likes to guess. So let us, refrain from guessing and start to work as soldiers. Are we together, ladies and gentlemen? Thank you. So we are done with that part. Okay, guys, moving on. We are on part 3 of the question. Ladies and gentlemen, part 3 is just the same as part 2. But to cement our understanding of part 2, part 3 is going to assist us. Okay, so we are going to do the same thing. First of all, we need to identify which which cost driver is being applicable for which cost pool. All right, because by the end of the day, we want to determine the cost per cost driver, the overhead cost per cost driver. And then when we get that information, we then move on directly to the specific product we want to give an answer to. Okay, so first things first, the question: calculate overhead assigned to product D in respect of material handling. So we can see that the material handling is actually the cost pool, okay, or the type of overhead we are talking about. But what is the driver of this overhead? That is the question. Okay, the driver of this overhead has been identified earlier on as the number of movements of materials. That's the cost driver of material handling. So material handling costs are driven by the number of movements of materials. Are we together? So one thing I had left out is, as you can see here, we are only talking of the 35% of the total cost of 654,500, which means the other 65% relates to other cost pools. So far, the examiner gave us only two cost pools, machinery and as well as materials handling. Are we together, ladies and gentlemen? Okay, so the examiner is simply saying that it's very, very possible to just attempt our attention to specific cost using ABC. It's very, very possible. All right, so that is done. Now, let me rub off this so that I get some space to compute this last part. I mean, the third part of the question. This is the total. We need that total. So, the overhead relating to materials or material overhead. Let me just say materials overhead. That's the cost pool. Okay, and we are told that materials constitute 15%. So that's 15% of the total overhead of 654,500. How much is that? 15% multiplied by 654,500, and we are going to get this amount, 98,175. Okay, then we ask ourselves, what was the level of activity of the number of movements of materials? What was the number, the total number? That's the level of activity of the cost driver, because the cost driver is actually number of material movements. So what was the total or the total level of the cost driver's activity? Because when we determined the total number of hours here, when we were calculating the machine hours in total, we were determining the level of cost driver activity in total. Similarly, we are doing the same here, and the figure is 120. So we need to divide this figure by 120 movements to get the cost per movement, the cost per material movement. So that's 98,175 divided by 120, and we are going to get $818.13. Okay, now we have that information. What then shall we do? Because we have been given the information in terms of the number of products produced and as well as the number of movements. Now, to get the associated cost in terms of the overhead to be assigned to product D, shall we then do what we did on part 2 of saying $818.13, which we have just calculated, okay, the amount of the amount of cost per material movement, and the total number of units produced, the total number of units of D produced, which was how much? We produced 750. Shall we do that? If we do that, we would have failed to understand what is going on. Okay? All right. Unlike the other cost drivers given in the question, materials were specifically given a cost value. Okay, they were given a cost value per unit. So we cannot then multiply, all right, we cannot multiply the material movements by the number of units produced. We'll end up having an inflated figure. But instead, we are only going to determine the material handling cost in terms of the number of movements. So in this case, in this regard, the $818.13 is actually reflecting the material handling cost per each movement. So to get the overhead applicable to D, we then have to ask ourselves how many material movements occurred for product D. And we can see from this angle, from this table, that product D only had 12 movements. So we multiply that by the amount of cost per movement. So there were 12 movements, and this will lead us to 813 multiplied by 12. That gives us 9,818. Okay, so some hints would tell you that some of the ways I want to take as even in abstract sense, as an abstract idea, you can actually see that by your intuitivity or intuition, that this is I'm now heading the wrong direction. I must come back and do this other thing. All right, with some figures, when you get them, they become so weird. All right, because the information given already for the materials was in dollars, right? And we are actually being told that the number of materials, okay, the number of movements of materials in relation to producing product D was 12 movements. Okay, so which means the 750 items altogether were done in 12 movements. So you can't multiply the cost per movement with the total number of units produced, because here we are getting the information that each product had these total movements. Product D in total, the 750 items of product D took only 12 movements. Then the 1,250 units of product C took 21 movements. So that's the idea. All right, so this is why we ended up obtaining the figure. We are saying that's the correct figure. We multiply by the number of movements and we get that. Then the last part, the other part, the last two parts of this question. Number 4, Teura PLC is attempting to identify the correct cost driver for a cost pool called quality control. So quality control overhead requires a cost driver. And from the information given, this is the list you were supposed to tick from. Shall we assess quality or the quality cost by the number of units produced? Does it mean that if you produce 1,000 units, we were actually incurring so much in terms of quality, in terms of quality control costs, number of units, and quality control? Obviously, it doesn't augur well. It would defeat the purpose, because producing more doesn't mean that there was high quality control or the quality of the product is guaranteed. No. Then number of inspections. Yes, this is actually correct, because number of inspections can give us some assurance that some quality control was being done. So this one is the correct one. Labor hours, but doesn't necessarily tell us, because labor hours, they could be, they could be related to other areas, not specifically to quality control. So in that case, we reject it. Number of machine setups doesn't actually tell us that the quality control was being taken place, or this is why the quality control costs are so high, because we were doing a lot of machine setups and so forth. No, that one doesn't directly tell us of that cost pool. So the number of inspections is something that is directly linked to quality or quality control. Now, if Teura PLC decides to adopt ABC, which of the following is a disadvantage that they may encounter as a result of this decision? ABC can only be assigned to production overhead. This one is actually wrong. ABC can be utilized to non-production overheads as well. Then so this one is actually wrong. Okay, it's true in the sense of ABC application, but it's wrong in answering the question, because the question wants the disadvantage. So this one can not be a disadvantage of using ABC. All right, we want to look for disadvantages of ABC. So we are saying that the first choice there is a wrong answer. Why? Because ABC can also be used in relation to other type of overheads not directly related to production. Okay, so this is why we are saying it's wrong. The cost per unit may not be as accurate as it was under traditional absorption cost. This one again is false. Yes, in a way, it's not the disadvantage of ABC, because ABC doesn't say so. This one again is wrong. The benefits obtained from ABC may not justify the cost. This is actually correct. In implementing ABC, there are costs that are involved. There is no free lunch. There are costs to be considered as well. So you, as a cost accountant, you then need to assess the cost versus benefits. Sometimes the benefits will be too low, and it becomes costly to implement ABC. So that one is a disadvantage. It will not provide much insight into what drives overhead costs. No, ABC actually gives us more insights. For example, we have determined that actually if we are using ABC, the machine hours overhead absorption rate will be reduced from 28 to $5.60. So there was more insight. We obtained some value in utilizing that technique. All right, I hope that part has been solved. Uh, which of the following statements about activity-based costing are true? A, one, ABC recognized the complexity of modern manufacturing by the use of multiple cost drivers. That's very, very true. This is very true. It's in line with the principles of modern manufacturing systems, and it's very relevant. ABC establishes separate cost pools for support activities. Yes, there are some separate cost pools. Okay, this is why I say that this is actually in line with the reason why I rejected the disadvantage which had been put across when we were looking at this particular part. If you still remember this particular part, this is why I said no, that's wrong, because the overhead could be assigned to other areas as well, not only production. So in the examination, you have been told that pick only two which are correct. So obviously you can see that the rest by default would be wrong. Okay, but we can discuss about it. ABC reapportions support activity cost. Was there any reapportionment? There is no reapportionment that was taking place. To reapportion simply means that, for example, if we are looking at the electricity overhead, we need to distribute it from, to share it with other, among departments. Okay. Was there any reapportionment of support activity costs? Support activity costs are those costs which are not related to production. So you can see that uh, we do not have that evidence so far. All right, so it doesn't say so. All right, ABC is an appropriate costing system when overheads vary with the time spent on production. Usually, if the costing system, when the overheads vary in relation to time spent on production, we can then utilize, the traditional way of doing things. This is why we ended up, absorbing overheads using machine hours or labor hours. Why? Because we know that what is driving the cost is actually the time that is spent on producing something. So ABC doesn't actually work in that context, right? Cost should be driven by something else other than time, and then we, we can safely say we can safely recommend the use of ABC in those situations. Other than that, we can then say just do the absorption costing the traditional way of doing things, and you can be fine because your costs vary in terms of time, not in terms of every other things. Okay, we're done there. Students actually our students get the model answers so that they perfect their understanding. They as well keep the video and the model answers for their revision. So don't worry, you are going to get the model answer for you. Which of the following statements about target costing is not true? Target costing is better suited to assembly-oriented industries than service industries that have a large fixed cost base. Well, this could be true. Okay, this could be true because normally we know uh, our margin. Well, we also know in general the selling price based as well on our understanding of costs in general. Okay, so this type of industries, assembly-oriented industries, they normally know their selling prices and their margins. So in that regard, they also have an idea of the target cost. Okay, and this is because their production costs are a little bit fixed. They do not normally vary, okay, or fluctuate. So this could be true, right? But the answer says, the question says which one is not true. So in that case, we cancel it out. That's not true. Okay, because if you take that one, you are going to get a 0. Why? Because although it is true, um, it's not answering the question. By the end of the day, you must answer the question. That's the very important thing. Students fail these papers not because they are not understanding it, but they are not answering the question that has been tested. Costs may be reduced in target costing by removing product features that do not add value. This is again true. If we have determined that the target cost um, is if the target cost is actually lower than the actual cost, what do we do? Okay, so we are simply saying there are two costs. Okay, there is what is called actual cost. So actual cost and target cost. So sometimes you discover that the actual cost is below the target cost. In this case, management takes no action. Okay, there's no need to, maybe they'll at their own discretion. Usually, it's the variance will be very low. Okay, there won't be any need for any managerial action. Why? Because the target cost is within the budget as well. But target is budgeted costs in a sense. So in that case, we do nothing. But if the actual cost is greater than the target cost, then that's when we need a cost gap will result. Okay, a cost gap will result, which needs to be reduced to bring it back to the target cost. So the statement is saying costs may be reduced in target costing by removing product features that do not add value. All right. So what is that information is necessary? Fine. I'd actually gone astray. I'm sorry for that. Costs. The statement is saying costs may be reduced in target costing by removing product features that do not add value. Okay, what we are simply saying is that sometimes the target cost, all right, so it was actually a relevant contribution. If the target cost is higher, managers look at those costs which actually do not add value to the products. So selling power. Okay, so unnecessary modifications of the product or sprucing up of the product, which are not necessarily going to increase the selling price. they become just you know irrelevant costs. Actually, they won't help us. Right? So in that case, managers will then have to remove those features or those designs, whatever, to ensure that they reduce the cost gap. All right. This is when the target cost exceeds the actual, uh, um, this is when the actual cost exceeds the target cost. We then have to ensure that we bring that to the target cost and we will be fine. Right? So, in essence, we are simply saying that management only takes action when the actual cost exceeds the target cost. And the situations which might give rise to this is, one of those situations is when we are incurring unnecessary costs, maybe due to the features which are on the product which are not adding value. Adding value in the sense of we are not going to increase the margins. Why? Because the selling price itself is determined by the market forces, is fixed, or the demand is elastic. When you increase the sales, no one is going to buy. So in that case, we are then going to cut costs by removing unnecessary features. All right. So that one is true, but it's not answering the question because we are saying that we need something that is not true about target costing. So it's not the answer. So let's go to the third one. A target cost gap is the difference between the target cost for a product and its projected costs. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the item 3 was saying that a target cost gap is the difference between target cost for a product and its projected cost. All right. Uh, in that case, it's actually correct. Okay, but I want to point it out something that could confuse you. All right, I was using actual cost, but uh, in uh, technically it's called projected cost. Where I was saying the target cost, the difference between target cost and actual cost, I was actually saying that I was referring actual cost to projected cost or estimated cost, estimated, estimated or projected costs. All right. What are these? These ones, when let's say you are in the factory for car manufacturing, when they want to manufacture an engine, there could be some specifications which they get from, let's say, maybe the technical graphic designers, something like that. Those guys, they design a car and so forth, and then they send maybe the specification, the items that could be required in the manufacture of an engine. So the buying team can come up with possible estimates, all right, on the cost of those items. All right. So the total of those items is what is called estimated cost or the projected cost. Even if it is a single item, okay, the cost, the potential market cost rather is the estimated cost or projected cost. However, to get target cost, we know that this is the selling price minus the margin, okay, the profit margin or expected margin. I don't know what's happening. Uh, my pen is failing to write. Okay, so that's how to compute the target cost. We need the selling price, and the selling price is from the competitive market forces. Market prices that as a product could be sold at. Okay, we need to estimate that selling price. Okay, estimate the estimated selling price minus the profit margin or expected profit margin, and we are going to get the target cost. So there is a formula for target cost. However, when we are talking of estimated cost or projected cost, these ones they are subject to uh, expected market cost, all right, which we can get. So you need to understand that technicality. So usually, this is why I just say actual cost simply means the current cost in relation to what we estimate the items to cost from the market, all right, vis-a-vis our target cost, which we are going to obtain from the estimated selling price less the estimated margin, uh, and then we get the target cost. Okay, so this is correct. However, being correct, it means that it is not the answer. All right, the statement is correct, but it's not true. Am I talking to somebody? Okay, I'm sorry again. I'm saying being a correct statement, it is not the answer. Why? Because we want something that is not true to be the answer. Okay, so this is why you see that we have been canceling out these other answers. They are true statements, so they are not the answers, because the question wants us to determine something that is not true. Are we together, ladies and gentlemen? Please get me right there. Okay, get me right. I don't want to confuse you. All right. Then the last point there, product should be discontinued if there is a target cost gap. Well, if there is a target cost gap, we normally do not start by discontinuing the product unless if it is impossible to reduce the target cost gap. And there are methods of reducing. Either we remove, we adopt this option where we are saying we are going to remove unnecessary costs in the design of the product, or we are going to improve our systems by buying new equipment and the machinery, by hiring experienced, efficient members of staff. So by so doing, we are going to reduce the target cost gap, all right, and ensure that we continue with the production of the product. So this option is not always true. So it's not true. Okay, this is the answer to the question. Management can do something. If there is a target cost gap, they'll find ways of reducing the estimated costs. They'll find ways to reduce them. One thing you need to bear in mind is that a target cost gap only exists if the estimated or projected costs are greater than the target cost. If they are lower than the target cost, there is no gap. Please bear that in mind. This is an exam trick. So it only exists if the estimated or projected costs are greater than the target costs. I'm sure I have been heard there. Then let's move on to number 8. Which two of the following statements about ABC are true? Implementation of ABC is unlikely to be cost effective when variable production costs are a low proportion of total production costs. Well, this one in an examination, you can just put it on a pause and proceed to other options. In a system of ABC, for costs that vary with production levels, the most suitable cost driver is likely to be direct labor hours or machine hours. We want statements which are true about ABC. Okay, so you can see the question itself is so challenging. Okay, so what do? You continue to read the options. So the third point is actually saying activity-based costs are the same as relevant costs for purpose of short-run decision making. You can see again that this could be challenging, especially in week one, where we haven't touched much on relevant costing. So there is a justification that question number 8 was troublesome to most of us. But the trick is move on, go to the next choice or option. Activity-based costing is a form of absorption costing. So you can see that at least you have found this one as your your correct option. But in the examination, you need to ensure that you found those two options correct at once. If you only found one option correct, you're going to get a 0. That's the problem with computer-based testing, because the computer program has been given two choices. The moment you got one of the choice wrong, you're going to be penalized and get a 0. So you need to pick the only. So just choose from the last 3 now. Okay, why am I saying activity-based costing is a form of absorption costing? You can see that what the computations of ABC have only assisted us with is to properly or to meaningfully apportion overhead costs. The normal overhead costs. We got more insight in terms of absorbing the overheads. Okay, but it's still the same old absorption costing. So the last option is correct. Now, the other correct option there is option number 2. In a system of ABC, for costs that vary with production levels, the most suitable cost driver is likely to be direct labor hours or machine hours. Remember, we also talked about the similar issue where we say that where we know we are basically confident that the cost driver of a particular production environment is normally time, then we need to use the traditional approach rather than ABC. ABC normally is used where there is sophistication or complex in the relationships in the production, where some cost drivers are so complex that we can not come up with a meaningful overhead absorption rate. But where we are actually seeing a steady, stable production environment with a lot of fixed costs, then in that case, we can safely use absorption, the ABC costing technique. The traditional costing technique. All right, but where we have got the other way around, where maybe there is a lot of uncertainty into what is driving those fixed overheads, those overhead costs, then we can safely use the ABC. But if we know for sure that the overheads are being driven by one or two, I mean, but actually by one of the cost drivers, then we can resort to the traditional cost way of absorption costing. All right, that is the traditional absorption costing method. All right, so why is the first one? Implementation of ABC is unlikely to be cost effective when variable costs are a low proportion of total production cost. This one is wrong in the sense that when variable costs are low, it means overheads are large. In that case, we can see that generally absorption costing applies. And when we are saying absorption costing applies, it simply means that ABC is also included. All right, so ABC thrive, ABC being another form or being a form of absorption costing, thrives where there is, the larger proportion of production costs are fixed or are overheads. So this is why A is wrong, because here it's simply saying that implementation of ABC is unlikely to be cost effective when we are saying that it is going to be cost effective. Why? Because it gives us more insights in a situation where variable production costs are so low, but overhead production costs are large. So get those, articulations properly very well. Okay, activity-based costs are the same as relevant costs. Okay, they are not. Why? Because okay, relevant costs relate largely to marginal costing. Marginal costing only considers variable costs. But when we are talking of ABC, like I said, it is just another form or an improvement of the old traditional absorption costing system. We still need the overheads to be available or to be in large proportions. So, activity-based costs should not be confused with variable costs or relevant costs. All right. So, in that case, this option is incorrect. Are we together, ladies and gentlemen? Yes, we haven't covered relevant costings as of now, but those are the basics. All right. Question. I think this one is the last question we need to think of. Are the following statements about target costing true or false? Are they true or false? Just pause the video and retry on your own. I understand you might have found it correct or you might have found it incorrect. Just try on your own. Okay, during the marking of your assignments, I did not penalize you if you found something wrong. I was only going to tick wrong that item which you found wrong, but the rest is part of that particular question were marked correct. That's what I was doing. But if I was so cruel, I was supposed to give you a 0, and most of you wouldn't have crossed over the 50 benchmark, the 50% benchmark. So the idea was to motivate you guys to keep on the morale and keep on the fight burning. So let us attempt question 10 and then see what the tutor has found out to be the true answer. Okay, let's do together the question. All right, so are the following statements about target costing true or false? Number one, a risk with target costing is that cost reduction may affect the perceived value of the product. Yes, remember when we say that when there is a target cost gap, management will do something to ensure that the gap is closed. So this we say that this occurs when the projected costs exceed target cost. If they exceed the target cost, then we need to find measures to reduce that target cost gap. All right, so this one is true, right? Where a risk is that target costing is that cost reduction may affect the perceived value. So when we reduce the cost, the perceived value obviously is going to, you know, uh, uh, to be affected, right? For example, if we remove some features as a way of reducing the cost, then the perceived value of the product is also going to diminish. It's also going to go down. Then an effective way of reducing the projected cost of a new product is to simplify the design. Yes, by simplifying the design, we are simply saying that we are removing those complex, those, decorations, high profile decorations. They're going to be removed, and we are only going to be left with a standard product, which again resonates well with the first option there. Um, in so doing, we are actually, simplifying the design and reducing the cost, but at the same time, the perceived value is also going to diminish, to go down. Then the third one, the value of target costing depends on having a reliable estimate of sales demand. Yes, remember, we need to estimate the selling price. Then we less the margin, expected margin, and we get the target cost. So obviously, we need to have some reliable estimates of um, the sales demand, right? The sales demand, because it also links us to the selling price or the market price. The demand itself will tell us the competitive selling price. Okay, then right, the last one, there's a battery problem. Target costing may be applied to services that are provided for free of charge to customers, such as cost of a call sender handling. This one is false. Why? Because target costing is not for free. It doesn't apply in free situations. Why? Because there is an estimated selling price in the first place that is to be applied to the margin. We need to deduct a margin from an estimated selling price, and then we get a target cost. So if we are saying we are offering a service for free, therefore we are not going to apply target costing. Okay, and call centers are not there for free. There are services that are given a selling price as well. Are we together? So target costing is not applied in a free situation, right? It is applied where the services are going to be charged. There's going to be a selling price for those services. All right. So the last option is wrong, because it is saying target costing may be applied to services that are provided for free of charge to customers, such as cost of a call and of a call sender handling. That is false. Okay, because one, target costing needs a selling price. All right. So obviously, this by having a selling price, it means that the services is not going to be provided for free. Two, it is not always true that it is not actually true that a call center handling is or a call handling center is operated for free. It doesn't work like that. Okay, so that one was the only false option. The rest were true. So I hope, ladies and gentlemen, you have been assisted with this presentation, and I look forward to see you in the next lecture, where we'll be improving on the specialist costing techniques. We need to look at life cycle costing. We need to look at all other areas which you know this form of management accounting, environmental management accounting. Well, we need to look at that area as well, and throughput accounting. We need to look at those. So please do not forget to spread the word. Spread the word so that other people will benefit. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, may you please continue to feel excited. I mean, very, very excited. Thank you. Sorry, the other people are saying that what's the number? How can we get in touch with you? Okay, this is my number. Right, let me write my number, please. Okay, plus 263 774 596 368. Please take care of yourself. Until we meet again. Thank you.